Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Super Prime UK with your Super Prime Valuation MJ Group specialists, myself Rob Cohen.
Myself, James Wild.
Hope you're all well everyone. The country is in mourning on the tragic passing of Queen Elizabeth II, and here we are after what's been a challenging week for the country.
It has, Rob, yeah, obviously sort of a few days in now as the Queen has made her way back down to London from Scotland. It's obviously a tragic day last Thursday when the news broke. I think the whole of the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth and the world, I think, was sort of rocked by the news. And obviously we have the funeral this coming Monday. So I think, like I said, Rob, the whole world's going to be, watching, mourning, sort of celebrating her life and her reign of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, momentous one-off occasion in many of our lives, especially the Queen passing. The streets are busy. It looks like there's millions of tourists and visitors coming to, as you said, mourn and celebrate a great life. And from a valuer's perspective, as a chartered surveyor, Queen was a big supporter of our Royal Chartered and of the RICS. So privileged to be part of that Royal Charter that we are.
Yeah, it was this week, Rob. So far, there's always been an influx of Royal Mourners coming into London. There's going to be a lot of people sort of queuing up to pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth II. So obviously, if we look from a sort of a slight retail perspective, there's obviously going to be sort of more tourists in London, Rob, which I think is maybe a much needed boost for some of the high streets and shops, certainly across London. It's brought people out, maybe those sort of multiplier effects on the transport network extremely busy so far this week.
Absolutely. So before we hit the numbers, major political events have taken place. We now have a new Prime Minister.
Yeah, so obviously Liz Truss came into, was sort of officially sworn into power last Tuesday, which obviously sort of 2 days into her tenure, obviously the Queen Elizabeth passed, so we entered the 10-day period of mourning, which has largely put sort of political events on hold for this duration. Number 10 has said that there's going to be a fiscal event this month, Rob, mooted as a mini-budget, which is set to outline the government's measures on how they're going to tackle the economy, the rising costs of living, and set out some of Liz Truss's policies. Also a number of new ministers yet to be appointed by Liz Truss. The mini-budget, Rob, it might release further news surrounding Liz Truss's energy cap freeze, which she obviously has preemptively announced at £2,500, which this could be quite a significant factor in reducing inflation, as well as maybe possibly holding back that future peak of interest rates.
Yeah, I think obviously major contributing factors of the inflation we've been seeing has been commodity prices, fuel, energy included in that, and so let's hope that the cap that has been brought in facilitates a slowdown or support in terms of people's disposable incomes, and let's see what impact that has.
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly sort of heating one's home this winter is only sort of one facet of the rising costs. Obviously, if we look at sort of logistics, how that's going to impact and has impacted the delivery of goods, and how that has really sort of contributed to the increasing prices on many goods, just from importing those to then logistically sort of delivering those around the country. Sort of again, Rob, final mile logistics. So that's impacted a number of consumers in the UK, but nearly all UK businesses as well.
I'm, as many of you will know, been in Brussels last week, the European Valuers Alliance conference, speaking to all of the major valuation companies across Europe. What's really interesting on the back of what you just said, James, is that most of Europe are facing very similar challenges to what we are, and their markets, both commercial and residential real estate, and their lending markets from a banking perspective, are following very, very similar patterns to what we are seeing in the UK. I think what we're noticing here is that the challenges we face are global challenges, especially at a pan-European level. And maybe the UK's challenges are not as isolated as sometimes we think that they are. Sometimes we're a bit insular, being the island that we are. But I think the comfort that the majority of Europe are facing very, very similar challenges to us, and in some circumstances worse challenges than us, means we're not alone, and everyone is facing very similar challenges.
Yeah, the economic outlook across Europe and across the sort of world globally is obviously one which is quite constrained at the moment. Obviously, the UK's inflation, Rob, is slightly worse than most of Europe. That's one factor that's possibly slightly worse than in the UK. And whilst we do have control of our own interest rates, whilst a lot of Europe is part of the ECB, I think it just sort of goes to show that some of those energy prices are one of the main factors contributing to inflation, and it's obviously an external factor completely sort of outside the control of the UK government.
Yeah.
Just talking about the economy, Rob, the Office for National Statistics showed that the economy grew 0.2% in July. So some positive news there. We're in sort of positive GDP growth. That's following the 0.6% slump in June, the month prior. So the Office of National Statistics has said that output was boosted at that time by the women's Euro 2022 football tournament, which England obviously hosted, and later won, as we covered, Rob. So I think that was positive in July. We're obviously yet to see the figures for August. However, it felt like a slightly quieter month.
Yeah, I think a crumb of comfort in the fact that the economy grew, even by a small amount. Obviously, August figures we will have to see, in September now, depending on how the consumer economy reacts to the new government, reacts to the energy caps. If that does give confidence and allows for that very nominal growth to continue, that possibly could soften what is supposedly a guaranteed recession on the way, quoting the words from the Bank of England. So let's see if there can be a slower downturn than expected, and let's see if some of the economic policies and hopefully some consumer confidence can turn that one around, maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just a final note on the economy. The ONS has said that there is a record number of over 65s in work at the moment, Rob, which I expect is a result of the rising costs of living, possibly people's sort of pensions now not covering sort of their everyday lifestyle. As UK unemployment does fall to its lowest rate since 1974 at 3.6% there, Rob. So obviously some positivity in the low unemployment, but that sort of constrained labour market is possibly edging towards pushing inflation slightly up, and a small contributing factor there. But a slightly surprising statistic about a record number of over 65s in work currently. We've got some property data as well this week. Wanted to just contrast some of the Halifax's house price index against nationwide. So they have reported house prices actually grew in August, according to Halifax, 0.4%. So a very nominal growth there. That was versus actual slight contraction the month before of 0.1% in July. So despite the increase in the house prices month on month, Rob, the annual growth has actually slowed slightly to 11.5%, as is the Halifax data. I expect over the coming months that is going to slip into single-digit growth as it's been easing down from its peak at close to 15%, which I believe was back in March earlier this year. If we flip across to the nationwide house price index, they've said that the UK price growth annualised has slowed to 10%, down from 11%. So they're both reporting a very similar message there, whilst prices there month on month were up 0.8%. So obviously, I sort of feel, Rob, that that's more of a holistic national view, and I think London has maybe slowed possibly slightly quicker than the remainder of the country there. But in terms of this sort of national data, they're both saying that August house prices grew. However, on an annualised basis, growth has slowed by around about 1% in both of those indices.
And before we wrap up this week, James, just a quick update on the latest figures to provide everyone with.
Yeah, so in terms of the London figures, we've got 265 new instructions there, so slightly below the sort of mean averages we've seen for the year. Under offers 183, so we've got a good pipeline of sales for the coming couple of weeks there. Whilst the sold numbers were positive at 138 for this week. So again, they're slightly below the average, 138, but still positive in terms of those levels there.
Yeah, through the summer season, schools are back. I'm pretty sure, as the seasonal patterns historically tell us, as we hit the end of September, you'll see a strengthening of all those numbers. Just to close out for this week, quick note on the tennis. I know a lot of you love the sports updates, been getting some good feedback. Alcaraz won the US Open, 19-year-old, the youngest since Nadal. And a year ago, we were celebrating Raducanu's victory, and a year down the line, it's the young Spaniard who could be looking to take over from the greats of Nadal, Federer and Djokovic. So that's going to be an interesting one, and a great US Open. And also on the sporting front, been getting some great feedback from some of you, and really appreciate that feedback. Loving the football chat, comparing James and I to Lawrenson and Hansen, for those that can go back that far. Some of you love the data and the intel that we share with you every week. Some of you have shared how great it is to have such a positive approach to the market and the industry when we're in such volatile and challenging times. Others have quoted every week there's one nugget or one piece of information that allows them to do their job in a better way, or gives them an insight that they weren't aware of before. And all of that is just amazing for us as a team, for the production team, for myself, for James. And we're here to support and produce for you, to give you the content, hopefully in the most positive way possible, giving the great insight and data and intel that we do have within the industry. So really appreciate the feedback, loving the support, and any more feedback that can come, whether constructive changes or just a positive viewpoint, is more than welcome and always great to hear. So you all know who you are. Really appreciate that, and thank you for watching, listening and sharing. And we will see you all next week, where We will be reporting on the latest Bank of England's policy on interest rates, expecting an increase there somewhere between 0.5 point and 0.75 point. And obviously we have the state funeral and the bank holiday that will take place because of that, and then we'll be back with you next week reporting on that interest rate decision. So thanks everyone, thanks for all your support, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks so much, everyone.